Good morning and welcome to episode 4 of Clint's Chronicles with Clint Cadio. I'm your co-host Alan Wazny, and for joining me in his Red Deer studio, you're in Red Deer, Alberta. Is that right, Clint?
Yes, Alan. Thank you so much for having me once again on the podcast. It's great to be back and cool to talk about different cool things today.
Well, Clint, it has been a while since you and your business partner Pierre Khalil, did I get his name pronounced right, joined me on the podcast, and we were talking. I guess it's fitting because we talked about some of the tech work that you guys are working on. But today, and you're going to, I'll let you introduce the topic because I think it's actually fitting for today's what's going on in the world today, the macro world as we know it.
Awesome. So cool. So yeah, today, the topic for today would be researching emerging tech as a teenager. That is the topic that we're going to go with.
Well, for the benefit of the two listeners out there, Clint has been an entrepreneur at his ripe old age since 14, and you're now 17. Is that right, Clint?
Correct, Alan. But yeah, I was.
You're a Gen Z. You're like a classic Gen Z, right? You're like got the hoodie going. You got a football jersey in the back. What football jersey is that hanging on your
Oh,
wall?
it's not a football jersey. It's more it's a memorabilia from like
Yeah.
the IndyCar series for
Oh,
like race car. Yeah, race car driving. Yeah, it looks like it could be football, but it's not football.
well, no. Coincidentally, I'm working with Justin Fox, the Backers Network, and he drives. He was in Peterborough a few weeks back. I don't know the stocks. There's some kind of he's got a Ford Escort that's souped up, right? So if you're an enthusiast, it's not quite indie level, but it was in Peterborough, Ontario, and you got to look. I mean, I can share that with you, but I didn't. If you're an enthusiast in racing, he's probably one to talk to.
So cool. Yeah, I'm like really into Formula One and like into that space specifically, but like racing in general, it's pretty cool.
Well, so there was a recent one in Japan. We covered. I work up with the Streakers Gaming, the founder Craig Weisenfalls. We do a weekly sports update. And a few weeks back, there was an F1 in Japan. I don't know if you followed it, but I'm not like a real enthusiast. But if you go to their YouTube page, they have 17 million subscribers to the F1
Oh
YouTube. So
yeah, it's crazy because like yeah, they were in Japan a couple weeks back,
yeah,
and now they're currently in I think Sao Paulo, which is in Brazil, and that's what they're racing this weekend and for
okay.
tomorrow.
I
So
just
yeah.
one little fact that came out of it, and for me as an old guy, OG, Michael Schumacher. Obviously, if you don't know
Ooh.
the Schumacher story, do you know what happened to him?
During his racing days as a Ferrari
Well,
driver.
he was like world champion. I don't even know the numbers, but
Oh yeah,
I think in 2017 he had a skiing accident, and he was
it
in
was
I think
sad.
he was a coma for a year, and certainly he's not racing again. But his son, so in that
Son
Jap,
is back.
in that I can't remember the name of it. The name
His
slips through.
name
Who?
is Mick Schumacher.
Yeah. So but in the list of that Japanese one was the 18th place, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, it's a Schumacher, and his son Mika. I said Mika Schumacher, right? It was
Yes.
18th place. I'm like, wait, this got to be It's got to be Michael Schumacher's son, and sure enough, it was. I can't remember the name of the team that he's racing for, but like it just whoa. I mean, isn't that the legacy lives on
Yeah, it's crazy because even for example, even for Max Verstappen to be racing, his father was early into Formula as well, and it's like
yeah, he
even
won
if
that. He won that. That's right. I think Verstappen from Holland, right?
yeah, no, he's from the Netherlands.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
Holland is the Netherlands, but okay.
Oh yeah, it is. Sorry.
Okay, but that's fine. Cool. So yeah, that's right. I think he won that leg or that he won the series. Didn't he win the year? He won the championship.
Yeah, he won the championship. They went two in a row at it now, so it's pretty cool to see. But it's either Verstappen is an individual. I know either you hate him or you love him. He's like basically LeBron. It's
And
either
who
you
does he
hate him.
race? So does he race for Red Bull or something like that or no?
Yeah, so he was around my age when he started racing for Red Bull. So it's like teenage dreams for Max Verstappen. Like
Okay, so I did get that right. I'm just looking at my notes because I want to go back to that because you brought me like it's pretty cool because League of Legends. You got to listen to our cast because we talk about League of Legends. We go into This is your area, man. So Japanese, here it is. So yeah, Max Verstappen racing for Red Bull. He claimed victory, and then Mick Schumacher was the son of my. I'm just looking at my notes from that race. Michael turned 52 last year, but literally that was the backstory. There's two backstories there. Well, first of all, Max Verstappen, that's another backstory, and then there's Mick Schumacher, and then his father, Michael Schumacher. So anyway, it really took me to a fun place because I'm not a Formula One in the weeds, but I certainly do appreciate the sport.
Oh yeah, their sport is a pretty cool. They're just like, even for example, even they're in YouTube at like 17M, which is, I don't know. For me, I thought it was, when I first got into Formula One, it was very surprising. I thought it would just be limited just to like the European regions or even worldwide, but now it's getting a lot of attention recently. So it's a pretty
Well, they're
cool
getting
sport.
young. I mean, they're getting youth, and clearly, getting obviously the siblings of Formula One, the past, that helps. But getting guys like you
Oh
that are
yeah.
interested, you're 17, right? So it's not that you drive, but what interests you? Let's just, before we go into the topic today, what interests you in Formula One, or when did you first think about it or find out about it?
Actually, for for me, I don't know, when I was in the Philippines around before we moved there, I was 13,
Yeah.
12. I used to do karting. So,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah, so yeah, I used to drive karts, but eventually we got into like the junior karts. It was like the next level into like Formula 4. But I was able to do that, like, fortunately, at a younger age. I did that as like another extracurriculars I did. And that's how I got into Formula One. But I didn't know really too much about what really I mean, I knew the concept, but I didn't
Yeah.
know too much about the professional league. So it's basically the NBA for basketball or the NFL for football, but for racing, it's Formula One. But
Okay, so
then,
why is Max Verstappen the LeBron James of F1 then? Is he just like on the race course, he's smashing people around? What is he doing?
I mean, it's argumentative to call Max Verstappen as like the LeBron right now. Like, he's the reigning champion, but
Yeah.
even for the last couple 5 or even 7, 10 years, you can see that Mercedes Benz, so Lewis Hamilton, dominated a certain degree, or like
Yeah.
throughout the years. He just
Yeah.
dominated a certain amount. But I believe that it depends when who, I mean, the driver, the car, of course, takes in account. But like, even right now, like comparing him to LeBron, because for Max Verstappen, he's people see him easier as like they glorify him. He's like, he's a great driver and such. But sometimes people say he could get a little too cocky, or he could get a little bit too showboating, like similar stuff to what LeBron does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of what LeBron does. So that's how it's, either you just love him as a driver, or like as a, or just, hate him as well, because you
But
get.
I mean, so you mentioned you started with karting, right? I know we're
Yeah.
going to talk about emerging technologies, but you started with karting. That literally must be the Max Verstappen's when they started on some kind of, I mean, it's not like you can step into a race car at 14, 13, 12 years old, right?
Oh no, you couldn't. Like, even for us, it was specifically around privatized, uh, general. It was in stadiums, but back when I used, because they called it the Junior Asiana Grand Prix,
Yeah.
so it was like an interconnected system for like around individuals around my age. So I was 12 to 13, 14 when I started doing it. But when we moved here and we go back and forth, when we visit back home, I
Yeah.
would hit the track once in a while. But I stopped racing when I was around 15ish, I would
Okay.
say. And that's when we settled here for quite some time. And when I was 16, that's when it's like officially over. But when I was younger, yeah, I did it like pretty somewhat consistently, but at the same time, it was a very fun, cool experience. And like you said, Max Verstappen or other F1 drivers probably started around the same age I did. And yeah, usually around, or even younger.
Yeah.
Some individuals who are in the space right now who seem pretty young, who are like 22, 23, that kind of seems a little old, honestly, if you have the retrospect, because actual drivers who's like into the sport, sometimes they start as early as 6 or even 3 for like
It's
card.
physical. I mean, it just, the go-karts that go faster, the real go-karts, you really, because when we lived in Dubai, there's the Dubai Speedway, which they lost the F1 track to Abu Dhabi. but there was right next to it was an indoor karting, and it's hard, physically demanding. Okay, I was an old guy or whatever, but if you get hit on the side or you hit the wall, like you feel it in your hips, you feel it in your arms like that. It's not like you can just go in and kind of, oh, hey, it's like serious. And that
Oh
was
yeah.
an OG doing it. I imagine for a young kid, you're a little more physically adept and more, but you can take those hits. But I tell you, that's just a stupid go kart. For me, it was just a stupid go kart, but it's serious for people that are moving up in the ranks.
Yeah, like the theory sometimes when even right now people think, or individuals, I don't want to generalize too much, but I got friends or other people that I know, they say they think it's pretty easy, or even just to get in a car and just start driving it.
No.
But it puts in a lot of effort and time, like even understanding the theory
Yeah.
behind driving a cart, or even what professionals do in the Formula Series. They put in a lot of effort, not just like physically but mentally, and just understanding not just the theory but all around that goes into court, because you got to understand the velocity, the speed of which your car is going,
Right.
or what
Right.
specifically you're driving in that specific series. It's basically, when you say you think you can beat a professional basketball player one-on-one, it's the same situation, because those are professionals who do this either for a living, or they've been doing it their whole lives. There's a lot of external factors that come in as well.
Well, look, this is a good segue. I thank you for that. It literally, I didn't, it all started from looking at your wall there. I didn't, we can do this next time. You can put something else on your wall. We can.
Awesome.
We used to throw. There's a saying used to be. It was just throw it up on a wall and see what sticks, right? And that's literally takes me to the next. It takes us to our topic, because literally the emerging tech these days, people just try something and see what sticks. And I think I'm gonna start out with the Sam Bankman-Fried. I don't know if you know that name. Do you know that name?
Oh yeah, SPF. It's
Okay,
been
so it's literally he was putting it out there, and for the longest time buying everything with it on the FTX trading. And he was the I guess the golden. He was more than LeBron James on the crypto courts, but he certainly, he got attention, and he's 34 years old, from high heights to down to zero at this point. So, but do you want to share your thoughts on SBF, because SBF? That's pretty
oh
good.
yeah. Actually, like how I I knew about Sam Bankman-Fried early on was around a year ago, when no one really knew who he was, honestly, even
Yeah.
for FTX, because it was just another crypto exchange platform. But even for SBF, because he's a pretty young guy
Yeah.
who got into the crypto space early on, and he became a billionaire at such a young age. And I just saw a video on YouTube, on like or I think so, it was this guy by the name of Nas Daily, and he featured SBF, and it was
Yeah.
my first time knowing who he was. Like, I didn't really know who he was, but going back to the video, it was all about what SBF was doing when he started FTX. Or I think he was, because he was featured as one of the youngest billionaires, and what he was doing was really amazing at the start. He was actually donating a certain percentage of the
Sure.
income he made, which was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool. But after that, I got interested. So I did some research on him. Oh yeah, he started his own crypto firm, FTX. It's a pretty well renowned, because he
What was the name
even
of that
for
video? What was the name of the YouTube guy, the one that presented? Because I
oh,
want
his
to.
name was Nas Daily, and I mean, he featured SBF, and that was my first time knowing who he was, or what FTX was, because no one
Yeah.
really knew about Sam Bankman-Fried until he became really a billionaire, like overnight, because he's like so young. But because
Here in Calgary, here in Calgary, which I found out later, one of my earlier podcasts was with a crypto exchange here in Calgary called, oh gosh, the name is slipping me suddenly now, but they're,
is it,
gosh,
is it
come on.
Bitfo or
Yeah. So Bitfo. Yeah. So Bitfo. So
Bitfo?
she
Yeah.
was on, Pamela Draper was on my podcast early, like episode 30 back pre-COVID. And then I found, so I was kind of posting going back to those first 100, and I noticed that they were acquired by FTX last summer. So was it this summer? It was this summer, or
Yeah,
July
it was, I
21,
think it
July
was
2,
this
no,
summer.
July 2021. So they were bought out by FTX last year, and it's sort of he bought out exchanges across the globe.
But The funny thing is though, this is what I realized. I thought when Bitvo got acquired by FTX, I thought the whole transaction went through like in a bit. Like I didn't know really much.
Yeah,
But now looking back, I think when I attended this one blockchain conference, I met Pamela myself. But when I was one thing she mentioned was that Bitvo wasn't like the whole transaction of the whole acquisition itself didn't fully go through yet. And I was like, wow, like I thought it would be done by now. I thought FTX
sure.
it would be acquired by would acquire Bitvo by now, but like the whole transaction itself didn't even fully go through yet. So that was pretty interesting.
Actually, it was 2022. It was recent. It was June 2000. It was so really just this year.
Yeah.
I apologize to the two listeners out there and to your, because you've had that discussion. But yeah, so June 17th of this year,
Yeah.
and the beta kit article had talked about the acquisition. So she said it hadn't been. When did you meet her then? Just recently, or?
It was pretty recently, yeah. Like I didn't really get to truly have a conversation with her, but
Yeah,
it was when she was one of the panel speakers that she just mentioned it. I thought Bitvo was fully acquired by TKS. I
yeah,
mean, sorry, by FTX by
yeah.
now. But then like the whole acquisition process didn't fully function or go through. And like based on the current situation right now, I don't think
No. I think so literally there was another fellow. He was the Scaramucci, Anthony Scaramucci. He was the shortest communications or PR rep of Donald Trump. And Scaramucci just last week, his company, literally had to sell back 40 million. FTX gave them or would invest in his company. And literally the article was yesterday. He's looking at how to go get back his shares. And so, that Scaramucci was probably the
wow,
highest profile person he invested in terms of fame
liquidity.
and stature. Well, no, fame and stature, because Scaramucci was
Oh,
Donald
cool.
Trump's communication guy, and he was on CNBC and featured, articles after his time with Donald Trump. But he literally worked 5 days and he got fired. So, but that was
Yeah.
his company. So he was recently talking about FTX. He's got to give back. He's looking at how he can get his shares back. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of these companies like Bitfo and these exchanges that got bought up, they'll just get tied up in this bankruptcy thing and where to divvy up the assets, right? It's because they've got companies that are legitimate, like Bitfo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting where they at, how like the whole I mean, even if you see where how it started, I feel like how his interaction with CZ through Twitter
Yeah, with
boiled.
Binance, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting how it all started with speculation and it was a quick like overnight. You can see how fast the crypto world has just, been rocketed because like the night before, it was like 2 days ago when I was with my director and like another friend. We went out for dinner, but we were talking about just our take on what happened during that day because it was that day when uh it got announced that they thought that Binance was going to acquire
Yeah,
FTX,
yeah.
but then eventually that same day I was like running simulators on my phone and I see my portfolio drop by like 20-40%. But it was just one simulator that was running using buying and trading crypto assets. And it was pretty shocking to see that even other individuals that I was talking to, my director and the other friend of mine who were investing in crypto and other assets, their whole portfolio just, it was
Well,
night
it took
and
a
day.
dive. It took a dive, and
Yeah.
I must admit I was looking at, well, first of all, I had the FTX app and I just deleted it because I figured that was just going to go off. And I since then downloaded the Coin Market Cap, which is owned by Binance, right? And so it recovered a bit. It's just under 17,000 right now. Bitcoin is, but yeah, it just literally I couldn't. It was like 21,000, and suddenly, because it's like what's going on? And then when you start clicking on the news, you start seeing, wait a minute, crypto collapsed because a major, FTX was a major trading, and they were a white knight. They were coming in and buying up companies and giving them, money to prop them up during the June, July of this year, and then probably included the Bitfo acquisition.
Yeah, like the whole situation like took a quick turn for what happened to SPF himself and FTX. It's like like how like the past, it was funny because if you look back to what happened to Terra Luna or
Yeah.
what happened to Voyager,
Celsius,
Celsius,
Voyager.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if you think about it now, people like the public perception on cryptos, like what I'm researching on, because I'm in space and blockchain, and I'm
Yeah.
currently doing research in that space. And one of the problems they're tackling is like with public perception, which is it's just ironic now because if you think about it, you thought FTX it was a really big crypto exchange firm, just
Sure. I mean, come on, the World
took a
Series.
toll
If you're a
overnight.
baseball, you're a Formula One fan, you're probably a baseball fan, or at least, in some sense, you might have been, kids your age would be baseball fan, Little League. FTX is a major sponsor. If you look, the umpire, go Google go to YouTube, so the World Series against Houston Astros and Philadelphia Phillies, and there's the umpire with the FTX logo. Now I saw that last year, and I'm like, oh, who's FTX, right? They literally they came out of nowhere. To me, I'm the OG. This is my second crypto winter, Clint. I'm an OG in this space, but I've been following guys and girls that have been really in
So
this space
cool.
since
Yeah.
2011, 12, 13. They've seen multiple crypto winters. So for me, FTX came on the scene last year when I saw the World Series. Whoa, I'm like, literally, I saw them on the umpires last year during playoffs of baseball, and this year they got obviously more prevalent, right? There's FTX Arena. I don't even know where that is.
I mean, it's crazy because if you even think about it, even for me, I don't know, I got into like really into Formula One just last year, but
Yeah.
like I was attending or watching videos on like different race car. I mean, just looking at the sponsors, FTX was one of the
Yep.
big sponsors for
Yep.
Formula One or like the whole series itself. And it's funny how you look at that, like at them back then when they were like a really big exchange to now where they are at now. So it was a
Well, no, and
quite
this a few weeks ago. So I listened to the Bloomberg. It's the Bloomberg Crypto podcast. It was kind of new this last 6 months or so. And 27th of May, I'll just two things. 27th of September, they talked about SBF, Alameda Research, SBF. What is the link between and FTX? So what is the link between the three? And they were kind of talking about this, how it was almost like nepotism, and they were really each other. And then this week, crypto sponsorships. So Monday, crypto sponsorships of Formula One racing dwindle with downturn. So they were kind of touching on this, and there was a few weeks before that they were talking, a few episodes before that they talked about similar. What's the draw of crypto people getting investments or getting sponsorship from crypto? So or big crypto companies. Crypto.com. They're trading. They're also a trading platform, right? They
oh yeah,
sponsor.
they're
There's a
very
crypto
big.
arena, I think, in where is it
In
in?
state, it was used to be Staples Center, now it's like crypto.com right now. So
Yeah.
there's you can see how like different companies in the crypto scene or like specifically in crypto are they're just putting an effect on different industries in the world. But for example, for FTX now, seeing them flourish to where they are now, it was just a quick change overnight. And it's pretty interesting to see where and how like the public perception on crypto will go forward. And I believe that it's gonna be a really crucial pinpoint of where crypto will be heading in the next coming weeks or in the next coming months.
Sure. I mean, there's historically, and again, I wasn't around, at least I wasn't in the crypto space when there was the Mt. Gox scandal,
Oh
there was
yeah.
the DAO hack, and then my first taker was in the ICO craze of 2017, and you were probably only 12 years old at the time, but at that time, I'm like, this is pretty. I didn't know what it was, but Bitcoin was rising $1,000 a day, and it was one of my colleagues I worked with in Qatar. He's like, "Oh, come on, Mike." He's Australian. He's like, "Come on, Mike,
Yeah.
look at this." And I don't know what he had, Pullinex or Kraken account, and he's like, "Come on, Mike, you got to look at it. You got to invest in this." I took the deep dive into learn it, like kind of you researched and learned about the space, right? But then,
Yeah.
so what I saw similarities. I said this a year ago. I said in 2021 when NFTs were crazy, there was all this kind of craze with NFTs. I'm like, this looks a lot like the craze of ICOs to 2017. I was like, literally, and it's played out that way. NFTs are now kind of everywhere and scams, and and so I don't think the FTX thing is related to that. I think it's a bad due diligence on the part of some of the investors, and to prop up and allow him to take his money from FTX and put it over to Alameda and loan that, and created this basically almost like, it's not a Ponzi scheme, but it is, in the sense that there's nothing underneath. There was no underlying asset. If FTX failed or FTT coin failed, which is what it did, or went down, the value of the underlying leverage, or the loan that was given, it suddenly it didn't have any backing. So
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Like, even right now, there's like people taking advantage of the whole situation with FTX. Like, you got people who's from the Bahamas who's like opening different, I don't know, it's like know your customer
yeah,
accounts. They're like,
KYC.
yeah, it's like how it's like a form of money laundering where they're just transferring, you can buy like funds at like a really cheap price. And now they're transferring it to different accounts, which is, no, it just fascinates me how what people are doing currently. If you're really educated and you know what's happening at the current moment, it's like it's like a gold rush for some people. And for others, it's like a majority of people are like, oh, this is like a downfall for the crypto world or the crypto scene
I
currently.
like you said it right though. It's like a gold rush, right? People saw this opportunity to the snake oil salesman or whoever to get in there and make a quick buck and fool those people. We have I'm working with the crypto team out of Caymans, working on their socials and the Twitter. Every time I post on Twitter, I get at least 2 or 3 days. The next day, 2 or 3 a day of, oh, open up this, open up. You just won a contest. You just won our NFTs. Open it up. We're giving away free ETH and free this, free that. I'm like, okay. I could usually block them and send them off, but
Crazy.
so
It's
yeah,
crazy.
I like the way you said that. It's the gold rush of the Yukon. I mean, we happen to live in Canada, and the Yukon's not far from us, but that's
Oh yeah.
it. All right,
It's
Clint.
it's a pretty, scary at this space, but at the same time, it's interesting where to see where crypto is going to go next.
Okay, so let's take a step back. As a teenager, when did you first decide that this was something? I mean, you started researching, maybe investing. Maybe you want to give us some history on your crypto or blockchain, whatever it was. What was the pivotal moment that brought you into this space?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I didn't even really start off in the blockchain crypto space. I really got interested into stocks in general, and
Yeah.
I was reading how like I just one day I bought this book, and it was about technical trading. I think I still actually have the book,
What's the
but
name of the book?
the book specifically is called Trading Technical Analysis Masterclass by
Really?
Rolf Schlotmann and Moritz Czubatinski.
You got to send me that. So Ralph is in Rolf or Rolf?
It's Rolf, so ROLF,
Yeah.
and Schlotmann, which is SCH, sorry,
Yeah.
LOTMANN.
Yeah. Okay. And what was his count and written by? Who's the other guy?
Moritz Czubatinski, which is
Oh,
they have pretty cool names.
Moritz Suba.
So it's Moritz is spelled Moritz,
Yeah.
and his last name is CZUBATINSKI.
CZUB. Yeah. Yeah.
ATINSKI. That's his name. I don't know. I'm probably
Czubatinski. So Czubatinski's probably Polish. Okay, so that's
I
pretty cool. So
butchered
we'll
the
put that.
name.
So this is you picked. Why did you pick that book up? And someone gave it to you, or did you buy it at Amazon? Where'd you buy it? Where'd you get that book?
Like, honestly, from what I remember, it was just in my one of my book collections. So I have my own book library, and at the same time, I just buy books everywhere from like thrift stores, chapters, whatever interests me. And I feel
Yeah.
like reading books has been a pivotal factor of where I am today. But specifically for this book, I just saw it in like one of my closets. So I picked it up and I was like,
One of
okay,
your
this is,
closets?
yeah, it was there because I have like piles of books just stockpiled in there, and I was
Yeah.
bored one day. And I was around 15, I think, when I found
So
this
that's when
book.
you were thrifting. That was the days you were thrifting. Remember, we talked about
Oh
the
yeah.
business case, right? You were thrifting. You saw the book. You picked it up, but you were thrifting for clothes. Remember, because your hack that you're
Oh
one of
yeah,
our early
while
episodes.
I was running that at the same time, when we go out and thrift, sometimes you gotta pop by the book section and see if there's something cool. And sometimes you get lucky, you get pretty cool books
What's
like
the
these.
year of that book? When was it written?
I don't even know
Go into
specifically,
go into
but it
page
was
two. This is you got to go in page two or
2019. It
okay.
was
So it's not that
written
old.
pretty. It's not that old.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. But the
Yeah.
book just it's all about the technical analysis when it comes to day trading,
Yeah.
options, and such that I just got really fascinated. But at the same time, it was all technical. It wasn't really me actually practicing how to do stocks or trade. So no, I ran some simulators. I did that for a while, but it was like the pivotal point that got me into the tech world or like what I'm researching at the moment. And it wasn't until I turned 16 when I came about reading different books on AI machine learning, where
Yeah.
I did my research there. And I did that for around 3 to 5 months. And that's where Transcript AI was born with my good friend
Yep.
Pierre
Yep.
Kalel. And that's where we started our own thing. And we did that for even until right now. So we've been doing it for the last 7, 8 months. And but currently at the moment, or during the time I was researching on AI machine learning, I got into the blockchain space around this summer. And that's when I was seriously thinking of diving much deeper, not just going into the superficial knowledge of what really blockchain or
Oh,
crypto
really,
is,
just
but
summer. This summer, you started looking at blockchain, crypto. This
yeah,
past summer.
it was this summer, just this current summer where I just wanted to dive deep into the space. But
Nice.
honestly, it was just a year ago. It was pretty recent, if you ask me, where I got hooked. I got hooked and I just wanted to do my own thing. I'm like, just scour through the web and read books and just find now currently even at the moment you just gotta go find the right correct resources because you don't want to be reading the
Sure.
wrong thing.
Where did you? So you said you went to a blockchain conference where Pamela Draper was and the Bitvo team. Where was that at?
So yeah, so it was a couple weeks ago. I was lucky enough as a as a teenager to be able to attend the Canadian Blockchain Summit hosted by the Canadian Blockchain
Okay.
Consortium. Yeah,
Where was that at? In Calgary or was it?
it was in Calgary. I was very fortunate enough to be like it was in Calgary, and it was hosted at the consortium in downtown Calgary, and it was
Okay.
a pretty fun, cool experience. But I was just fortunate enough to land a ticket going into the event.
Where was it?
Because
So do you remember when it was? I mean, or you we can pop that in the show notes here, episode notes.
oh yeah, for sure. So it was around I think October 19th to 20th. It was
Okay.
a 2 day, 3 day event. And it was pretty cool because as a teenager who's doing your own research on the side,
Yeah.
who's doing their own thing, who's just like a pure enthusiast, going to events like those really give you a greater understanding, in-depth analysis, and different perspective from actual professionals in the space. So I was able to have different types of conversations with people from the crypto world, but as well as different worlds as in Web3, like who's in the metaverse space, or even regulators, which is pretty interesting because that's one of the issues when it comes to cryptocurrency or blockchain is like a lot of issues with regulation. So I was able to talk to different individuals specifically in the space of
Yeah.
either crypto or blockchain who's a part of different industries in the macro perspective.
Okay, so you've touched it. There's probably a lot to unpack there, but I want to go back to something you said when you were sitting around the room earlier. You went for dinner with your director or your advisor. Who, I mean, was it a he or she and someone also on this blockchain side, or just someone someone you look to as an, I'm just let's put that in perspective because you were having this chat at a random dinner table or wherever it was, restaurant in Red Deer.
Oh yeah, like so the we when we had dinner, it was actually in Calgary. It was like just a couple days ago. I went out with my director from TKS. His name is Stephen Ritchie,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, so I went out with him. That's when and another individual as well. He's in the startup scene in Calgary. His name is Rex, and we had a conversation. We were just went out, grabbed some food, but at the same time, during our conversations, yeah, that was one of the topics that was brought up specifically because what is happening in the
Yeah.
crypto scene right now. It's pretty crazy. But even during that time, that was the day, specifically the day when Binance announced that they were somewhat gonna acquire FTX, but it didn't go through, as you may have not know now. But during that time, we just talked about it. Like, even for me, where I started, I didn't really get into crypto. I got into crypto just a year ago as well. It was pretty early, but
Yeah.
I wasn't fully invested too much. So I wasn't really buying any crypto assets. I was running my own simulators
So
and just
that,
educating myself.
yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the simulators as well. So what were is there software that you're running that on? Because it's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, I don't really look for those, but simulators exist in a lot of forms. But this is cool. So is there an app that you've downloaded or?
Oh yeah, I actually downloaded so many so many apps, and I know which one to really choose to, but there were so many apps. Like when I started trading, it was in Investopedia. I'm not sure if Investopedia has a
Okay.
crypto trading platform for like simulators now, but I started there for stocks specifically and just
Yeah.
shifted into different ones. So I had like FTX one. I was just like making mock-ups, but it was like early like a year ago with
Yeah.
FTX.
Yeah.
You get different uh what do you call those? It's like different trading platforms. So Robinhood, like, even though they're actual trading platforms, they
Yeah.
have, like, before then, from what I remember, they had like actual, you can run simulators. But currently at the moment, I'm using this app called Delta, which is an application you can have on your phone, and it allows you to buy stocks with an actual wallet that in real time, so you can see the actual, like, your actual portfolio,
Yeah.
also what
But
you would
it's
use.
fake. You're not investing real money. You're just investing as if you were investing real money.
Yes, so you're just getting into that mindset, so
Yeah.
when you actually hit the real world and you want to open your own brokerage account and start trading, or you want to start buying or mining, whatever that may be, you have a great sense of analysis moving forward. But personally, for me, I had my first crypto investment, but I don't think it was the greatest investment I've ever made,
Sure.
because it wasn't I wasn't educated. So I feel like I should emphasize a lot on, before you get into something such as crypto or whatever that may be, you just need to educate yourself a lot before buying actual assets, because you don't know if the volatility is going to hit your portfolio really harshly based on what people are feeling at the moment right now in the crypto scene. So that's like one thing I would
No,
I would
I
like.
think it's not. I think first of all, the wisdom that you're bringing there to the table that speaks volumes. Because when I first learned about, like this is the same thing. I didn't want to invest in it. Something I didn't understand. So it was that for me personally, it was the education side. But last year, when I first heard about NFTs, or like really heard about it, it was March of 2021. A guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said, yeah, I got a new project coming up, and it was all about, he said to the community many times in posts on wherever it was in social media, was spend 40 to 50 hours to learn before you go and do anything here. Spend the 40 to 50 hours on learning this stuff. So I think it's an important point, because I think the reasons there's problems right now is people weren't educating themselves on the FOMO, right? There's FOMO, the fear of
Oh yeah.
missing out, right? And to capture the FOMO, people don't do the education. So I think, Clint, you're into something really important. The simulation. You've taken me back to when I was at first or second year university here at University of Calgary. Back, it's a long time ago, Clint, in the
Long time
80s,
ago.
in the
No way.
80s, right? And we did
Cool.
sims, we did simulations, but it was with the newspaper. You picked up the newspaper and you look through the stocks, right? The trades. But we did a simulation.
Yeah.
We got I think it was a $10,000 portfolio at that time, and it was the club. It wasn't a club, but it was part of our finance class, and it was literally, I learned how to not to trade, but I learned how to look at the stock page, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
but that was a pivotal point for me back in sort of understanding that world. But I didn't know what I didn't know, but it was pretty cool, like what you're saying. That was a manual simulation. So that
Oh, that's
I think
so
this.
cool.
But this is pretty cool. So the regular stocks and crypto, and the app is now called Delta. So how much do you start with, or they give you play money? What is it? What's your starting point on Delta?
Oh, specifically for Delta, you can set a certain amount where you can start with.
Yeah.
So I started actually a year and a half ago
Yeah.
with 10,000 USD.
Yeah.
and currently just diversify my portfolio throughout stocks, index funds, and other such assets. And a majority of my actual investment portfolio is into crypto right now,
Yeah.
because when you just gotta know when to buy the dip or when to come into the actual market. But yeah, like you usually start with a certain amount, like even with Investopedia, like this one instance from my school, we ran this investment club, or it was an investment class, but we had a competition, stock trading competition, where in Investopedia you are given $100,000. I think a lot of teenagers or maybe individuals may have gone through the same simulator, but you get $100,000,
Yeah.
and you start with $100,000, but you get a certain timeline. So we got 6 months to grow our portfolio, and whoever had the highest amount in their portfolio wins the competition. And that was my first time actually running a full simulator, and that's how I got into. Right now I'm using Delta, but
Yeah.
I used a couple simulators like Investopedia before
Okay,
getting
so
into
let's go back to the
trading.
school one because this is pretty cool. So you was this back in your finance class, or do you
Yeah,
want
it was a year ago when
to? Okay.
I was enrolled in this financial management class, and it was pretty interesting because it was one of the first thing that was introduced by us by our teacher. And we were fortunate enough that we thought, like, even in school, like we thought they don't teach these type of things, but in the class we were just lucky enough to have a great teacher to introduce that. And
Okay, can
we
we give
did.
it? So this is Mr. Henderson again. It's got to be
Yeah,
Mr.
this is
Henderson.
Mr. Henderson. He's the one who's running a lot of the business finance at other schools. So it's pretty interesting, because a fun fact about my teacher, Mr. Henderson, if he wasn't supposed to be a teacher, he would be a banker right now. That's what he
Yeah.
said. So that's why he's running a lot of the finance business stuff. But it was a pretty fun experience because
But I
you're
like what you said.
introduced to.
I
Yeah.
like what you said because he says what they don't teach you. Kind of, there was a book, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before. It's Mr. Henderson knows this stuff because hats off to Mr. Henderson. There's a book called "What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School," right? So that was Mark. His last name is slipping me, but literally he wrote the book. He went through about
Yeah.
all these life kind of skills, right? And it was a marketing guy, and he came up with this Mark McCormick. But literally, Mr. Henderson should be that, what they don't teach you, and he's teaching it to the kids in your school. Hats off, Mr. Henderson. Well done.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because honestly, we were supposed to be learning about, I know, the textbook stuff, but he was able to tweak it in a way and make the class more interactive,
Yeah,
and that is a great
Clint. I think
way to do it because you're just introducing.
we're having some technical difficulties, Clint. I think we're gonna restart this. I've lost Clint. All right, Clint. Well, we got a little bit technical difficulties there. So I'm going to allow you to unfreeze, and we'll continue on. But let's go back to Mr. Henderson in that class. So you started with 100K. Who won? Shout out
Uh,
numbers. Anyone in your class?
so okay, so this is how it started. 100K. The class was full of different kids. It was like there were some kids who were like just okay with it. They were chill. They'd rather do this than do taxes. I don't know. That's what they preferred. And we had other kids who were so competitive. They were
Yeah.
like, oh, they were in it to win it. And there were other kids who were just very neutral. They were very neutral. But luckily, I don't know, like for it was fluctuating so much. Like everyone's portfolio was at 100.
Yeah.
At least 50% of them some of them were strategic. They didn't start buying early on. So their whole portfolio stayed at 100,000, while others were very aggressive. But some of them, their whole portfolio just dipped overnight, and they just bought the wrong stock. So
Yeah. Yeah.
some of them were just buying penny stocks, and all of a sudden their whole portfolio from 100K
Yeah.
went down to like 50, or some even at 35 at the start. So it was fluctuating crazy. And like the leaderboard itself, I was either at the start I was around I was like fifth out of 30 participants,
Yeah.
and at some point I was like second last for like a month. And I didn't know. I was like, okay, I have no hopes. I have no hopes. But all of a sudden, at that time, there was this one specific stock. I forgot what the stock was called. It was a pump and dumps. It wasn't a pump and dump scheme, but it was something like that because it was a penny stock that rose
Yeah.
in a day, and we were lucky enough to know about it through like the news or something. It was
Right.
my friend of mine who recommended it, and luckily, I think I was able to pull myself back in the top three. But by the end of the whole shebaz in the 6 months of day trading, I was able to win just by $1,000 in my portfolio.
So
So
you won the event.
yeah, I was fortunate. Fortunately, I think I got very lucky, but at the end,
So how many kids participated in total? 40, 30, 40? How many?
yeah, around roughly around that much, like 30, 40 kids roughly in the class who wanted to participate. So it was a very cool, fun experience. But other than that, I feel like this is the type of things they should start teaching in schools
But
or
that's real. This is real stuff. Like it's like you're learning how to trade, which is it's part. I mean, okay, not everybody trades, right? But if you are interested in finance or you want to know how to make buck, as you've referred to in the past, right? This
yeah.
is a great way to at least, if you have a small portfolio and it's a mimic or as you said, simulation or mocking real world, there's less risk and maybe you're what you invested in might not be typical because it's your own money, but at least it gives you an experience, practical
Yeah,
experience.
that's so true because you literally had nothing to gain. It was a simulator, it was not real money, but it allows you to learn so much and get
Yeah.
into that investing mindset at an early age. So later on in life, maybe if you want to try it out, and I feel like it's such a crucial thing that the educational system should teach students either basic personal finances or like just investing, those developing those soft skills that you can later on pick on in
Well,
life.
this it's been off topic. It's not off topic, but it's like literally I got an email from Calgary Board of Education. Just here's the thing going on at the Fowler High School here in Calgary, and it talked about the trades, and it listed 15 different trades because whatever auto body and different mechanical and things like that. And I thought there should be an overlay of some practical stuff, not trading, but sorry, how to run your business. Like if you've got a business around that, my can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. So, how to run, the social media campaign, how to run investor, how do you find investors, how to prepare your finances and account, you know what I mean? Like that. I didn't see that in that list of things for people to do. And I thought, gosh, those are some real, like, it's great to learn the mechanics, right? Not the mechanic, but the technical traits.
Yeah, like
But
the
the skills of
fundamentals.
how to promote yourself, how to do the marketing, the accounting, the legal, like there should be together. They should be like more group stuff. Maybe Mr. Henderson should go there and help them. You know what I mean?
Oh
Divine
yeah.
courses, defined courses for them. So learn how to plumb, learn how to like the electrical wiring, whatever it is. But together, what if you have to start a small business around that?
Oh yeah, that's so true. Yeah, like learning those fundamental skills. And that's eventually at some point after we had the pitch comp, I mean trading comp, the stock trading competition, that's
Yeah.
when he introduced us into uh junior achievement early
Oh,
on.
yeah. So that was
And it was a great segue, learning how to like look at the stock market and teach basic finances and segue into starting your own business. And it was a pretty cool class, or the whole setup by my teacher specifically was a really good way to intrigue and hook the students to learn about like finances or whatever that may be in a very more innovative and yet creative way. Because even for if you ask a lot of sometimes Gen Zs or individuals around my age, some of them might see this as like a boring thing, even though it's like a really crucial life asset that you can have as a skill.
no, I agree. I think it's absolute for many levels, but what do you do when you graduate? What are you going to do? And this could be a good prep. That stuff you're learning, as you said unfortunately, there's only 30 of you. But imagine if you didn't learn this and how you come out of the world, your view of the world would be a lot different. So, Mr. Henderson, look, I want to put this out there. If you are listening to this podcast, Mr. Henderson, or maybe, as an assignment for Clint, we got to get him on. Clint, we got to get Mr. Henderson on and to talk about some of the innovation he's done since he's gone to your school. He started at your school.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, for sure. Like
right?
if we can get Mr. Henderson on one day and have a chat with him, it would be a very cool experience getting his perspective as well.
Well, just some of the things about what kids are doing, what maybe some success stories, some of his failures, some of the things he would do differently. Like Clint, you could interview him. I could just sit the fly in the wall, and I'll let this is be Clint's Chronicles. Literally, we need literally. I think this would be beneficial to a lot of folks.
So true, so true. But yeah, that's like that could be another topic for another day. Coming, have him on. We can talk about different things as well, and he
You
can
guys could
share.
frame it. You and Mr. Henderson could frame what you want to talk about. Maybe bring Pierre back on for a part. Pierre, what I mean, whoever, maybe some
Yeah.
other students, or we just have several series where we have Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson talks Clint's Chronicles with Mr. Henderson, right? And just really make this thing beneficial to a lot of folks, not just the 30 kids in his class, but how many students in your school probably in total?
We have roughly around 13 to 1500
Okay.
students this year.
Right. And then there's the Red Deer, the Red Deer community at large. Then there's the Alberta, it's like this has got a powerful, this could be real powerful, but we'll start with small, or we'll start
Of
small. You,
course.
me and Mr. Henderson.
Sounds
We
good.
could start a separate segment. We could start a separate series.
Oh
Clint.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then it was after that whole situation, we learned so much. It was great. But after my summer during my
Yeah.
I was 15, 16, then that's when I got really into the blockchain space. And that's
Yeah.
where specifically I did like it was fun. It was ironic, like how like some individuals, even including myself, I'm very guilty of this, knew about crypto, what crypto was, but didn't really know what blockchain was. So that was a very interesting take that I diverged myself into. And that's where currently I am at the moment, just pursuing blockchain research in this space as a 17-year-old innovator.
One of the podcasts that I've done, one of the episodes is a crypto coach. We did have Debbie Mamuzo on. We did a couple series. We tried to get the crypto, which ran out of kind of personal time and commitments and work commitments, but it was about educating. The first episode was, what did she do? And it educated me. I learned there's the Coin Market Cap. If you go to that website, Coin Market Cap, which I believe is owned by Binance, and it's like a repository of information. It's incredible. I used to go to Ethereum Foundation, tons of information, tons of education. If you want, I mean, at some point I'll share with you, Clint. I've got a lot in the education space, and there's so much information out there, but people go and they want to trade. They go on the FOMO or the hype instead of spending that 30, 40, 50 hours and educating themselves. So you're onto something real important. Happy to share whatever I have on that.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, like you mentioning crypto, like it was probably one of the resources I was looking at too, like reading articles and such, and it was really helpful. And getting any resources from professionals like you, Alan, would be very helpful for me, because I'm not even joking when I emphasize educating yourself in a space is so crucial. Because recently what I realized is that it's funny how the NFT space in general got like a lot of hype recently, and like you said, mentioning the FOMO. But when it comes to creating or minting NFTs, sometimes it's very, people think it's really complicated, but it's really not, because you can open up your own OpenSea.io account, or open up your own MetaMask account and connect both, and it's pretty straightforward. Maybe some technical stuff, but it's pretty easy, because we had when I was at when we were running this program in TKS, it was our first time getting introduced to like blockchain and Web3 in general, and like different things. But when we were specifically diverging into blockchain, our directors wanted us to create our own NFTs and our own ERC20 token.
Wow.
And we thought it was really hard. But by the end of the session, what we realized is just that, like if you don't really educate yourself, you don't get the perspective how the fundamentals are really, really crucial. Because when it comes to creating NFTs, sometimes it could be really straightforward, and you don't really need a lot of much manpower or like sources to do it yourself. And we were able to, fortunately enough, to start creating our own NFTs on OpenSea.
This is incredible. So first of all, we should do a session and you walk us through, like, that's an education. First, do you have all the video of that and showing how to do it, or just you guys did it and didn't create any footage or content?
Oh, we did. But the thing is, I had a friend who specifically wrote an article on how to create ERC20 tokens and how straightforward it could be by just
Yeah,
copying different lines of code, and you can
nice.
deploy it yourself. Because it's if you educate the masses, if you like get people involved and just know the fundamentals themselves, when if you understand that, you'll understand the crypto world, you'll understand what NFTs truly are, and I feel like public perception won't be too much of a problem when it comes to blockchain or
That's that itself is amazing to walk through. I mean, maybe we, that's where the share the screen at some point we do another episode, Clint, where we just walk through the Knowledge Society and my learnings from the Knowledge Society, how to do an ERC20 or how to, it's 721 is the NFTs, but the ERC, the non-fungible tokens, but, they maybe that, it's part of together. I don't know how they see that's the thing. Like, how does ERC20 fit together as which a normal token versus the ERC 721, which is NFTs and anything else, right? There's a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because it was my first time. I was still diving deep into it,
Yeah,
but it was that session where, and the thing is, it wasn't even set up by TCAS. Our directors specifically told us, go on the web, learn how to create an NFT, and they
that's
gave us
awesome.
tips and advice, and we didn't
Yep.
really need much. Like anyone who has access to the internet or who can create their own MetaMask account or any whatever trust wallet you may have, it's pretty straightforward after that when it comes to minting, deploying your NFTs, or even creating your own ERC20 tokens. You can have just an outline of steps that you could follow, and you could do
Brilliant.
that yourself.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting that educating yourself is very crucial. And even right now, and currently at the moment, this is what I'm specifically doing my research on, is like smart contracts, how smart contracts can be as accessible, or how anyone can deploy or create their own smart contracts without actually them fully writing lines of code, and making it easier for the masses to do that. And that's one thing I'm currently focused on at the moment.
Okay, I mean, well, we can finish. I think we can finish here because this is. I mean, you're continuing your research, and maybe you can share with us in a future episode your research around smart contracts, and that's just the if then. Oh, my computer keeps up here, but the if then else statements, like smart contracts are executed. The better they're coded, the better their wording, like agreements, right? They literally are
Yes,
using them for
correct.
agreements to execute and release funds and so forth. So I think I'd love to deep dive and learn from you what you are to learn about your learnings in this space. So
Awesome. So cool. Yeah, I would love that for sure one day. But yeah, Alan, it was a great talk. It was a great session today, talking about the worlds of crypto all the way to investing and such. And I'm very honored to share my experience with others and with
no,
you
it's
as well.
fun. Look, I wanted this to be about you, and I'd love to bring in Mr. Henderson to talk about some of the things he's doing. We'll put that as your homework. I am I'm going to be your voice of
We-
reason here, or voice of something. Say, Clint, do your homework. Let's talk to Mr. Henderson. Let's get him on. Continue on with the smart contract research. Love to hear about that. Any final words from Clint's Chronicles? And for let's go back
Oh
to the
yeah.
theme, right? Because you're really researching emerging tech as a teenager. So for other teenagers, words of wisdom from Clint Cadio today. What's your final thoughts?
No, thank you so much, Alan. This is like Clint's Chronicles. This has been like branded because I had to rename my newsletter, and Clint's Chronicles just, it just stuck to me. And it's currently the name of my current newsletter. And I'm very honored to still, share my knowledge, always come on the podcast and have a great talk and
Where's your
chat.
newsletter? Like for listeners out there, how do we subscribe to your the newsletter?
Yeah, for
Because
sure. So monthly, if you want to read some of the stuff I've been doing currently, I wrote a lot about this past month. I wrote a lot about my experience with TKS, as well as attending different events like the Blockchain Summit
yeah,
on Substack, and I can feature my
nice.
newsletter. But it wasn't Clint. The name of the newsletter wasn't Clint's Chronicles until I realized I was doing a podcast on the Calgary Business Podcast with you, Alan.
Yeah.
That really made me wanna, it was like a brand. The name itself is like a brand, Clint's Chronicles. So I renamed it to Clint's Chronicles, and I just stuck with it. It was pretty cool.
Okay, well, so let's share with me outside on the the email or the if you've done it on Substack, which is pretty cool because that's for journalists. I mean, that's a the journalist. I only learned about that from listening to different podcasts, particularly the TechCrunch podcast, and they talk about Substack compared to Medium and other. I think you can write your own newsletter using WordPress and things like that. But really cool. So I want you to send me the link to the newsletter, and thanks for
Awesome.
letting me know because I knew we talked about it early on when our one of our early discussions, and so the Clint's Chronicles just rolled off because it's your
It's like,
name but using your name on it, but it actually it fits for what your journeys from as a 14-year-old hack selling wares and pops and juices and snacks out of your trunk of your car and your locker to
but,
now
but
learning about crypto.
of course. But props to you, Alan. You're the one who just came up with the name that just I just stuck with it from
I
there
didn't
on.
get your parents. I didn't get their permission, so that's another assignment. We need your parents, or your mom, or your dad, or both, on this
For
podcast,
sure.
along with Pierre's parents, where we just talk. Do you know your son? Do you know what your son's been up to the last 3 years? I'd like to hear that. I would love to
Yeah, for
hear
sure.
Clint's parents, the Chronicle, like their
They'll
views.
they'll be surprised for sure
Yeah,
when they start hearing more stories and they're like, "Oh, my son! I didn't know he started doing that." But yeah, one day for sure. I'll always love to have my parents on and hear his parents if they would like to as well. But it's always great talking about technical or any topic regarding the matter. But
but
it's been a great.
it's gonna be so helpful to kids. And when you go to university, you're gonna have a lot of things, your profile or your portfolio of things to talk about. So if you go to university, you probably don't even need to go to university. You're probably going to be your own in your own business in the next couple of years. So,
I'll
Clint, this
try
has
my
been
best.
fantastic. But we do
But
need to talk about that. Like, if you decide to go to university, this is what I would do. If you're gonna, you're gonna be successful before you're 20, and you probably don't even need a degree
hopefully,
for that.
hopefully.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Clint, I don't want to take away from your studies, which I know you got to get back to. So,
Oh,
have a
it's all
great
good.
week,
It's always
rest of your
great
weekend.
chatting. You as well, and thank you so much. You have a great weekend as well. Thank
All
you.
right, Clint. See you, brother.
Peace.